We are 11 days out. Is this escalation in the Middle East likely to be a factor in the campaign?
It could be a factor. For sure, Donald Trump is talking about it. To be clear, he has been on stage the last couple of nights at his rallies talking about him being on the phone with Prime Minister Netanyahu. We know, and there's new reporting from the Washington Post that says that he has spoken, Trump and Netanyahu have spoken at least twice in the month of October, as recently as October 19th. Don't know about the additional conversations Trump is claiming to have had. We also know from Bob Woodward's book that Donald Trump has allegedly spoken to Vladimir Putin. We know he has entertained folks like Orban down at Mar-a-Lago. So it is quite unusual, to be very clear, that a former president, a current candidate for the presidency, is having conversations with world leaders that are actively involved in so many conflicts right now, and potentially those conversations, knowing we know about Donald Trump's policy in opposition to what the current president, President Biden and his administration are saying. That is quite unusual. That is, not how we do things in this country. And it could play out in that way. I think, though, that when it comes to the war that is happening between Hamas and the Israelis, and then obviously now this new front that has been opened up in the border between Lebanon and Israel, I'm concerned for the people. And there are many people in America who have direct ties back to, obviously, Israel, to Palestinians, and to the Lebanese people. So that, in that way, it could also show up. But this is just not good, to say the least. I know all the Democrats keep saying, and Republicans, this is now an opportunity since Sinwar is dead, for peace. But peace seems very far off.
Molly, these campaigns are pulling out all the stops. On the celebrity front this week, we had Bruce Springsteen. Tonight, it's Willie Nelson. It's Beyonce. From heavyweights in politics, it's been Barack Obama. Michelle Obama is next. Will it make a difference?
Yeah, I mean, look, Donald Trump would not be a candidate for president for the third time in a decade were he not a celebrity. So
that's a good point, right? When he's like, oh, the celebrities,
right?
That's how he ended up.
That's why you're here. So I personally think that, look, I actually had a famous person say to me, "Does it make any difference? Do we help anyone?" And I was like, people love celebrities, so obviously it does. And does it make a huge difference? Who knows? But it gets attention. And again, the goal here is to break through the media and break into sort of local news and to get to lower information voters, and maybe it does that.
Let's talk about something else, right? We are all talking about at our university. The LA Times and now the Washington Post have officially declined to endorse a candidate this year. Both papers have been endorsing presidential candidates for years. The Post says the decision was made not by anyone on the editorial staff, but by the owner, Jeff Bezos. LA Times says its decision was made by its owner. Both obviously are very, very, very wealthy businessmen. What is your take?
Yeah, I think it's kind of a silly conversation. I don't think those papers change the hearts and minds of Americans. You think about how many persuadable voters there are right now, and so a lot of folks in the middle of America don't read those papers,
but
right?
It's not about it's about democracy, right? It's about your.
Hold on. Finish your point.
Well, I mean, my only point is like if you're reading those papers,
endorsing wasn't mad.
Yeah, I mean, we talk about a lot of stuff that goes on in the middle of America. They're not reading those papers. They think they're kind of elite publications, right? So to me, I just think, you go back to 1976, the Post used to do it, and since then, and they didn't do it before that. And so to me, I don't think it's a big deal.
But it's obeying in advance. It's this idea that Timothy Schneider talks about where you're saying an autocrat might come to power, so let's make sure we don't make him mad.
Right, the timing is awful here. I mean, this is the week where we have John Kelly coming out and calling Donald Trump a fascist. The timing is terrible. If you're going to make this announcement, make it 6 months ago. Right now, it does look like capitulation.
Well, I just think, look at the way Americans get their kind of news right now. It's really not from a print publication. And if the generals want to come out and they want to make a stand, they can kind of do it in many different ways. Obviously, social media, that's the thing that moves stuff around. So go have a press conference, say it to the American people. I just think hearing it from, a coastal rag, I don't think that does a whole heck of a lot.
Okay. Hold on a minute. The Washington Post is not a coastal rag. It's not a coastal. Okay, that is your opinion.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it's definitively not a coastal rag. Yeah. And I do want to share a quote from someone who does understand the Washington Post and the magnitude, their former editor, Marty Baron. This is his reaction. This is cowardice, with democracy as its casualty. Donald Trump will see this as an invitation to further intimidate owner Jeff Bezos and others. Last I checked, the Washington Post tagline was "Democracy dies in darkness." Simone.
Well, Marty, when Barron was in charge, absolutely it was.
Well, he did go to Lehigh.
You know, I'm from the middle of America. I'm from Nebraska. North Omaha, Nebraska, to be specific. And to me, the non-endorsements, what that says is that if these powerful papers who are helmed by these billionaires are concerned about what Donald Trump could potentially do to them if he comes to power, if they weigh in this race, then how in the hell am I going to survive? Right. How do you expect regular people to stand up to him? And so it is, I agree with you. I don't think people are going to make their decision based on what the Washington Post was going to say, right? However, it does indicate, like, you know, if all these papers are endorsing someone, it says something that their campaign is doing well. But I do think it matters if papers are choosing not to endorse for fear of what could happen.
Do you think you're changing hearts and minds talking right here on a Friday night? I mean, the people who are watching this show, they've already made up their decision, right?
But do you care? I guess this is the actual question. Do you care that people are scared? This is what it is. It's fear. I don't think Jeff Bezos will say he's scared. I think he's saying he's trying to make a smart business decision, which, again, fear. Does it bother you that people are making decisions because they're scared of what Donald Trump is going to do?
I just think we have so many other important things, 10 days before the election, and I just don't, I just don't, I'm part of the media. You guys are part of the media. I just don't think it's going to be that influential. I don't think we're going to look back on November 6th and say, I really wish the Washington
I guess you're not hearing what I'm saying.
It's not going to move hearts and minds. But the question is, are billionaire owners shaping coverage and shaping the way that we read the news? And they had said they weren't, and obviously they very much are.
In 2016, there was a question at the Washington Post, should we endorse? And Jeff Bezos said, yeah, why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we? So the question is, if Jeff Bezos was saying, yeah, no problem, of course we should in 2016, what has happened in the zeitgeist that suddenly he's saying, no, let's stay out of that game? All right, let's move on to Donald Trump sat down with Joe Rogan for 3 hours. He is clearly making a play for young male voters, often a low turnout group. Do you think it's working?
Is it working? I don't know. I mean, it's an interesting play, right? Because if you want voters on your side, you want women, because women turn out.
You want everybody.
You want everyone, yes, of course. And you can see Kamala Harris doing that right now.
But isn't that sort of the mistake that Democrats keep making? If you want to win, you got to get women. And that's why it's left this lane open for Trump to go after men. Because it's not that she's saying, I don't want men, but just this idea, if we want to win this thing, we have to get the women. And guys are sitting out there going, well, what about me? And Trump's going, let's go, boys, the water's warm. And he's offering the lowest possible carrot, but they're taking it because at least he's saying their name.
Well, she tried to go on Joe Rogan, but she's not there.
I personally think it's a smart decision. I think that the campaign decided.
And he said no?
No, what happened was it was a scheduling. It's my understanding there was a scheduling conflict. When they wanted to do it, she couldn't do it. But also, I think that if they wanted to do Joe Rogan, they would have found time. Right. I think all money ain't good money. Okay, every podcast ain't for everybody. And maybe they said that podcast wasn't for her. I think, so I actually push back on the notion that Democrats are not, haven't been the party of, are the party of women. That, that's what a lot of Republicans are saying right now, when literally most of the people in charge of the Democratic Party apparatus for a very long time were and have been men. Okay, the president was at the top of this ticket up until 3 months ago. The DNC chair is a man. Like the top, when the House leadership, when the Democratic leadership gets together, it's men right now. So I think people just, this idea that, the conversation about abortion is about men is actually also wrong, because it takes two to tango. So Joe Rogan is an interesting play. I think that Donald Trump is going for the bro vote. I think the question is, will the bro voters, i.e. people who don't, again, they don't usually come out to vote, but they could, are they going to make the decision to go to the polls and check the box for him? And they might, which is why the campaign has to do, the Harris campaign has to do their own concerted outreach, which I think they've done in their own ways. Tim Walz has been doing it. The vice president herself has done some. The campaign infrastructure has tried to do a lot. But Donald Trump's approach is just very brash and they hate you, I love you, let's do it. And it's okay, but what does this mean for the economy?
Yeah, I mean, the bro vote, it wasn't there for him in 2016, right? And do we think about we're 8 years on right now, and he's appealing to that sort of thing. I mean, why does he show up at these UFC fights? Why does he go on Joe Rogan? I mean, I think he knows.
Why does he have Hulk Hogan?
Well, I think to
speak?
expand his base. If you think about it, I think a lot of us would sit around here and say, since 2016, has he really expanded his base? 2020 told us something different. The midterm elections told us the sort of things that actually could win for Democrats. Abortion is a big one. They don't really care about that. They should care about it. I don't know if you remember when you were teenagers. I certainly cared about that. So, at the end of the day, I think that if he has the ability, I think it's in Texas. I think it's in some of these places that really won't matter. They might help the general, but I don't think they do anything for the Electoral College. So have fun. Go to Texas. What he's doing in Texas is very different than what Kamala Harris is doing in Texas today. I think that's the thing that should break through for the next week or so.
That's a great point. Obviously, we're going to bring up John Kelly this week. He labeled Donald Trump a fascist. That has presidential historians ringing a bell that when you hear from John Kelly, when you pull together all these other data points, it is alarming. It's concerning. Will it be concerning to voters who have not already decided who they're voting for or if they're voting?
I mean, it should be, right?
Not should. Is it going to?
Trump's longest-serving chief of staff says, and he's this military guy, very decorated, says this, and then 13 or 14 members from the Trump admin come out the next day and say, that they think it's true too, and that they support him. I think it will. I think there are voters who that breaks through and they go, oh my God. And there's tape of him on the Wall Street and the New York Times website. There's tape of Kelly answering these questions, and you hear his voice talking it through. And I think that's meaningful.
But you